Excellent. Thank you, Sherrie.
Thank you.
And welcome to Native Nations viewers. I'm David Liberty from the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation out in northeastern Oregon, of course. And our guest tonight is Sherrie Davis, currently from Vancouver.
Yes.
Sherrie, you grew up in Pendleton. You're from back the same place I came from, right?
Yeah.
But you're not a tribal member with the Umatillas.
No.
You have other affiliation with the Cherokee and the Creek and who all else?
Seminole tribe, and Osage. So a lot of my ancestors were from the southern tribes, so they all came from, like the Davises, the Mayfields, Five Killers, all the Wards, and all those people out there, all my ancestors and relatives and grandparents, and a lot of them were, either enrolled under the Freedmen rolls, and or, through Seminole or Cherokee or the Osage or Seminole tribes. So they were all kind of separated over time, and each one of us ended up in different areas eventually.
Well, a lot of those tribes ended up in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, a lot of them were in Oklahoma and Tennessee. Some got shipped off to Texas, so they're kind of all over the place, and eventually out to Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, where you are today.
Yeah.
So, well, how did you end up in Pendleton?
Well, my grandparents eventually, they owned a farm out in Pateros, Washington called Davis Apple Orchard. And they ended up coming all the way out from Texas, and their families were all from Oklahoma and Tennessee, where they originally grew up. And then, as my great-grandparents eventually somehow migrated to Oregon and Washington, and a lot of them ended up out here eventually just, they were farmers and people that were, business owners, and they did all sorts of types of things. I'd say we had a lot of ministers and healers in our family.
Oh, great.
We did.
And you're carrying that tradition on.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, Sherrie works with the healing arts, and of course you heard her excellent music that we started out with tonight. And we'll hopefully get a few more songs out of Sherrie this evening, so thanks for joining us. We want to highlight these two CDs that you have produced. Now, the first one is this one, right?
Yes, it's called Midnight Dreams.
And tell us about this one, Sherrie.
So, Midnight Dreams, I have 6 songs on that album, and all my songs that I compose and write all come through dreams that I have of my ancestors, great-grandparents. And they give me these songs, and so every song that I have, and they come to me with meanings, and I'm actually going to be writing a book on this album, and it'll be based on all the songs and the meanings behind them and how they came to me.
Great.
And so,
a whole book on the CD.
Yeah, on the CD, and of course CD will be with it.
Well, yeah, you can sell the book and insert the CD in the back cover, of course.
And so, but yeah, like my song, Thunder Sky, it was an interesting song as I was going through this dream, and every night I was having, when I was creating this album, every night I was having dream after dream, and my ancestors and grandparents would come to me with all sorts of new things and songs and meanings, to these songs. And so, like Thunder Sky was a song that they brought to me through that dream, and everybody was gathering, and I had never been out to the Tennessee or Oklahoma Cherokee Nation building, and so we're in the dream, we were there, on the ground, and everybody's gathering, and they're all wearing their beautiful regalia, and we're dancing, and my grandparents are saying in the dream, hurry up and get dressed and get out here and bring your flutes, right? And I'm thinking, why are we playing our flutes at a powwow? They were like, we need to bring peace to the land, we're going to be part of this with the drums and the dancers, and we're going to really bring positive energy out, and change this negative energy. And so the song was about, lifting that positive energy up and eliminating and allowing all the negativity and all the, racism and negative things that were happening, not only to our people, but to all nations. And so they came to me and they gave me this song, and they said, okay, now you've got to learn this song, and then you need to record it and play it and share it with others that need to hear this song, to heal them and bring them, that rejoice and that positive energy. And so at the end of the song, and I remember everybody dancing in the dream, and they're so beautiful, and we're all happy, and everything is just rejoicing in a great way. And then at the end, as everybody left and said their goodbyes, well, right before then, all of a sudden I see in the dream there's thunder rumbling in the sky, and it's just crackling and rumbling. It was so beautiful, right? And I look back, and it's above the Cherokee Nation building, and I'm looking, going, wow, look at that. Yeah, we really need this energy. And then my grandfather looks at me and says, the thunder's coming because it's coming to clean Mother Earth and help the people eliminate the negativity. And then he told me at the end of the song, to learn the song, and he goes, and now don't forget the song's called Thunder Sky. And so that's how I got that song. And it was just amazing, and the stream was so beautiful, and that's why I'm going to write the book, on it, about these beautiful
there's
stories.
a lot of backstory behind the songs.
Yeah.
Well, what was the song that you started out with?
Right, so that song was a song that I created called Morningstar. And so each dream that I have and each song that I compose all has, a different vibration, melody, or tone. And a lot like my song Wisdom of the Elders, that song actually came to me through a dream that I had when our good friend Mitch's mom passed and crossed over. And when she crossed over, she came to me when she passed in my dream and said, continue learning our ways and our traditions. Even though you come from our tribe, we consider you one of our family. Because we did a lot together. Oh, I grew up with their children. We were like family. We really were. Mm-hmm. And I'd go there and I would work on her and help her get rid of her pain, and because she had severe arthritis and diabetes, and I would bring herbs and all my medicines, to help her, and she'd feel great, and so she kept telling me, just, listen to the elders and to, listen to her husband and to learn from them.
Well, I heard that Rooney is struggling now with his health.
Yes.
So let's put up good thoughts for Rooney Pond and hope that he can get better, get healthy again.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid on the res, people didn't say, how are you?
Right.
They said, how's your health? And it was really centered on your health. When I was a little kid, I got to thinking about my health. What's my health?
Yeah.
But, I learned early what healthy was and how important it was to be healthy. And I'm very fortunate that I did, because I'm healthy at 61 years old. I can still function fully and do everything I want to. So it really helps to be conscious of your health from a young age. Mm-hmm. And I try and push that on my kids, my grandkids, to always be thinking about your health and how's your health. And, we ask that back home. And now people just say, how are you?
Right.
But it was a serious question back in the day on the res. How's your health? It's not just an idle conversation. We really wanted to know, how's your health?
Exactly.
So that's one of the experiences I had as a kid. I like to think back about when I was on the res and when the traditional ways I learned when I was a little kid. They were so important to remember and hold on to. Mm-hmm. And that was one of them that I cling to with all my passion.
Yeah. Take
care of my health. If I don't, nobody else is going to do it for me. So I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have my health at this. Oh, I'm sorry, I mistook. I forgot to mention, I am an alumni of Oregon State University. And the Beavers are in the World Series. They won their baseball game last night.
Cool.
So they are down to the last few teams.
Oh, wow.
And it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention my Oregon State Beavers. Class of 93. Go Beavs. Take the World Series. Okay, Sherrie, let's get back to where we were, because I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just a fan of my alma mater. So the Pond family is just a great bunch of people. Mm-hmm. And our mutual friend, Mitch is no longer with us, but I went to school. I knew Mitch when I was a kid, but then we met back again when we were going to school at Oregon State. We were both older than average students, and I was older than Mitch, so we were older than most of the students. But
well, you know, his mom was just inducted into the Pendleton Roundup Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Pendleton Roundup is the biggest event that Pendleton puts on every year in the second week of September. And it has the biggest encampment of native people in their teepees. As far as I know, it's the biggest encampment.
I think it is.
Crow Fair was competing with it at one time. But it's a great culture experience for native people because you see all the teepees and all. There's several different dances that happen during the roundup. Between the cowboys, you get some Indians. So that's a great thing about the roundup is the tribe, Umatilla tribe, has been participating all from the beginning.
Oh yeah, for a long time.
And they helped to create the night show, the Happy Canyon Night Show, which kind of shows the history of the valley in a sort of romantic way.
Right. Yeah.
But it's really a neat show and worth seeing. If you get a chance, you got to go to the Pendleton Roundup at least once in your life, and then your life will be complete.
Yeah, true. Got to experience it all.
Yeah, I try and go back every year for finals day on Saturday if I can. So
usually I try to go the last 2 days of it, and then I'm good.
Yeah,
got my
and
fix
you
for the
see
roundup.
everybody, and reacquaint yourselves with old friends, and you get to hear the drumming and the singing, and so it's really. I highly recommend the Pendleton Roundup to those of you who have never been there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's get back to the flutes. Now, you brought several different ones.
I did.
Tell us about the style and design of this flute first.
So this one is called the double bore flute. This one's actually made out of Arizona by High Spirit Flutes, which is owned by Odell Borg. And so this is made out of a walnut wood, and it's a little heavier. And you can play walnut better or if you're outdoors or because it doesn't, shift that tune and it holds the
Yeah, it's a hard
tune.
wood.
It's much harder. It's a lot heavier as well than some of the other lighter woods. And then, of course, Odell Borg does a lot of inscripting on it, or he'll put a little piece of turquoise into the wood and give it a beautiful, look to it.
It is beautiful.
I would say out of all the flutes that I've owned or have and even looked at, you can't really miss with a flute coming from him. Because when you're a professional flute player, you want a flute that's perfectly pitched, something that when you overblow or whatever, it's not going to break. Where even you could overblow on these flutes and they're not going to break. Where I've had some that were a little cheaper flutes and they didn't really play quite to tune. And I've had friends give me flutes and I'll play it and go, okay, you can have this back. And I'll call it a wall flute. It's a wall flute. You put it in a box and put it on the wall.
Yeah.
So I'd say most of the best flute makers that I've found, believe it or not, is High Spirit. Wood Sounds is a really beautiful. I'm actually going to be purchasing a Wood Sound double bore flute from him soon. They're a little more expensive, so they can run, like this one I paid close to about $400 for. And this one, who is made by Stellar Flute, you can just get a basic, and this is the wood is a cedar wood, so it's a lot lighter weight, and you can play it for a lot longer. Plus, it's smaller, so you don't need to use as much wind in order to play that.
I have a cedar flute.
Yeah, they're a lot nice. They're nice, the way the sound and the energy plays of it. And then this one is a bass D, so key of D, where this one's a key of A, and that one's a key of G. And so the bass Ds are really nice because they can really harmonize with almost anything as well. This one, of course, is inscripted with the turquoise on it and then a little bird inlay on it as well. But he makes some beautiful flutes. I think I paid about $300 for this piece.
Now that was the Arizona guy?
Yes, this is made by Odell Borg at High Spirit Flutes.
High Spirit, and this one was
And this is Stellar Flutes up in Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma.
And he custom makes flutes too. I really like his design because he too is another flute maker that you can get a perfectly harmonizing and pitched flute without it overblowing or causing a issue within the flute. And so every time I've ever played a flute by him, it's always been perfectly pitched. It's always been keyed correctly here. Well, you'll find some flutes, the finger holds will be off.
Yeah,
or the fetish
they have to be
isn't
exactly
sitting right.
spaced to be properly tuned.
Right. I have a few that were gifts that were given to me, and I just couldn't play them because they're not perfect on the keys, and they don't play or pitch correctly. So I kind of stick now to the ones that I know that are perfectly pitched and they have a great quality sound. I have a few, like my cousin, before he passed to cancer, he gave me, it's another, I should have brought it, I didn't bring that one. It's a key of F, and it is like an F minor, and it plays a nice pitch. It's also an high spirit flute as well. And so, I think I have more high spirit flutes than I do any. And then I have a few of other makers, but they're just not as good. If I'm going to play a concert somewhere, then I'm most likely going to bring these flutes and this one, and I have the other high spirit flute that I'll bring with me and play. And then I'm going to be purchasing the wood sound flute, which is an interesting flute because his flutes, if you think of a double bore, they're usually like this, an A-frame. Now you have your harmonizing flute here, and then you have the flute that you play here. And so his flutes are stacked like this instead of A-framed. So they're better to hold on to weight-wise, and you can play it a lot longer. Because the symmetry of it is a lot easier to play
I
than
can
this.
see how
This is not
the
as
two
easy.
ends sticking out, it would be harder to keep a balance than we're right on top of each other.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And his flutes are perfectly pitched. I played a couple of flutes. I was deciding what I wanted to get, and then the prices are kind of steep on his flutes because they can run between $800 to $4,000.
Wow.
For a wood sound flute.
Boy.
Where at least with high spirit flute, you can get them ranging between, a little less than 100 if you want a learner flute, something basic and simple, but still pitched nicely. And then he has signature flutes that are a little more expensive. Of course, I had to get the ones that were a lot more expensive.
We won't tell.
Of course, we have to do that.
Sherrie.
I know.
It's a secret.
It is. It's a secret. But hey,
just now everybody in Portland
it's
knows.
quality. I know. Huh? But yeah, beautiful. I don't know, the wood flutes. When I first started playing, oh gosh, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Believe it or not.
Oh, that's all?
And that's it.
Wow, you're really a new player then.
Yeah, pretty much. But see, I used to play other instruments when I was younger, so music has always been in my family. So my grandparents were all musical, and my grandfather used to teach me how to play the violin by ear when I was younger.
Oh, great.
And so I played the violin for a really long time, all the way up to junior high, and all the way through till almost high school.
I started on the cornet.
Oh, you
I did
did?
it through junior high into high school.
Oh, wow, cool.
Then I sold it when I was broke and on my own
Oh,
in
no.
Eugene, and bad mistake.
Uh-oh.
I regret it.
Yeah, I still have my grandfather's violin that he brought back when he served in the military in Germany.
Oh, wonderful.
And he brought it back from there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still have that old
Well,
thing.
that's
It plays
good that you
perfectly, too.
A musical family.
Yeah.
It's always good.
It was kind of ingrained in the genes. So when I first wrote my first song, it's called On an Angel's Journey. And I was actually playing at an angel event, and I was thinking, okay, what am I going to play at this angel event? It's not quite a native thing, right? But I thought, okay, I'll do this. Well, my great-grandfather, who used to teach me how to play the violin, came to my dream that night and said, I'm going to teach you how to play this beautiful song that'll be perfect for your event. So he comes to me and he says, remember how I used to teach you how to play the violin when you were a kid? I hand it to you, I play a little something, and I hand you the violin. We're going to do the same thing with the flute. And then he's telling me, but we're going to play that on your bass flute, right? So he's grabbing the bass flute, and in my dream he's playing the flute, and he's playing this beautiful song. And then he hands me the flute and says, okay, now you play it. And I'm thinking, really? Now I'm on the spot. I got to really play this. And so then I'm playing it. We go back 3-4 times till I got it perfectly right. And then finally he says, okay, now you got to wake up and go record that song so you don't forget it. Okay, so I wake up and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And I think I'm never awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. And
well,
so I was like,
you got a job to do.
That's right, I got a job. And so I get up and I'm wide awake, and I got in the living room and I turn my system on and I start recording that song until I got it down perfectly. And then I go back to bed, and I only played it like 3 more times on there till I recorded it, and then it's good to go till I fine tune it later.
Wow.
And then I go.
What a way to learn the
Yeah.
first song on the flute.
I know, on the flute, right? All through my dreams, that's where they all come from.
Well, some of the,
So-
I have heard a story that the flute will give you a song.
Yes.
If you know the flute, it will teach you a song.
It does. I always tell people when they're first learning, listen to your heart, listen to the energy. The flute plays you, you don't play it, right? So the spirit of the flute, what it's telling you.
And I also heard a story about the first flute. The idea for the first flute came from a hollow branch in a tree that had the wind blowing through it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure where that story came from.
That's an old
but
Lakota
that's
story.
Lakota story. Okay. Yeah. Are there Cherokee stories about the flute?
There is, a lot of it, so the flutes actually originally you would see a lot of the southern tribes, or, those tribes were...
Yeah, it's not over here on the west.
No, and a lot of, other cultures like the Asian cultures, some of the Middle Eastern cultures, also very ancient flute players in those times
I have
as well.
a Chinese flute.
Oh, yeah,
It's
those are
almost
beautiful.
impossible to play.
Oh, I'm sure. Is
You
it a
have to
side?
blow across the top.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard.
Those are harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No. But yeah, you'll see that a lot of the flute players, you'll see that it came from a lot of the Plains Indians that first were recognized for bringing that flute music in.
Yeah.
And like that story that you were talking about, it's, been told forever and ever, and it was about, flutes were actually originally created for the men to court women.
Yes.
And so it was
And
their
then
way.
if you were successful in the courting, you just threw
Yes.
your flute. Well, you were done with the flute. Now it's...
Yeah, now you got the
you were-
woman.
Yeah.
And that's how they used it. And like in that old Lakota story, it was about, this little guy that he was so tiny that, he couldn't attract any of the women because he was such a small little guy. And so he went out to the forest, was upset because he really loved this woman, that wouldn't even pay attention to him at all.
Poor
Because
guy.
he was just a little guy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else wanted all those big strapping men.
Oh, sure.
And so he falls asleep under this big, beautiful tree, and up above was a woodpecker pecking on the tree. And he's pecking away, and he falls asleep, and he hears this sound, coming through that wood as a woodpecker is pounding on the tree. Well, the woodpecker had pounded all these holes through the limb, on the tree. And of course, it was creating this beautiful sound and this beautiful song. And then as he woke up, he still heard the song playing as the wind was blowing. And then he looks up, and the woodpecker's up there, and he asks the woodpecker, what is that? Where is that coming from? And the woodpecker replies and says, it's coming from the tree. And so he asks the woodpecker, can you bring that down? Can you chop it for me and bring me that? And so he does, right? And he brings him that limb. And then the woodpecker's telling him, well, you can't make that sound unless you use your wind, because he's saying, oh, now it's not working, right? Because now the wind isn't playing because it's not up in the tree. And so then as he brings it down, the woodpecker's telling him, well, you got to blow into it. You have to use your wind.
Oh, you should have known that.
Yeah, you should have known that, right? And then he plays the song, and then, the woodpecker's teaching him the song, and then he runs back to the village, and he's sitting outside the teepee of the woman that he loved and starts playing the song, and eventually she comes out and sits with them, and then fell in love with him because of the wood and the sound of, the song.
And it still happens today.
Yeah. I was playing at it was funny, about 2 years ago I was playing and had a booth at the Oregon Native, it was the Oregon Association for Minority Entrepreneurs, right? AWAMI. And I'm over there playing at my booth, and this guy comes over, and he's over at a different booth, and he goes, oh, and I stopped playing, and I went to go do something, and I walked by the booth, and he stopped me for a minute. He goes, oh, I just love your playing. You know, my father used to tell me if a woman is playing a song for you that you'll fall in love with her. And I was like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I was like, well, nice to know, but okay.
Well, there's other traditions with the flute.
There's other, yeah, that's right. So it's kind of funny.
That's pretty good.
But yeah, the wood, you know, really makes a difference in the sound and the vibration, and you'll get a smoother, softer tone when you're playing a cedar. You know, these are both different types of cedar. This Spanish cedar, and I can't remember what type of cedar he said this one was, but you know, and they all come from different areas too, depending on where the flute maker is. You know, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this looks like a yellow cedar.
Yeah, I think that's what he said it was. Yeah.
And we would love to hear a song from each of these flutes.
Yes.
Ideally.
I will
Sherrie.
play you.
So how about, since we're at the bottom of the hour, why don't you give us another song, please?
You bet. I'll play this little one for you.
Okay, very good. That's like my flute. Feel it in here.
Yeah. One time I was playing, where was I at? I was playing at one of the Native events, and it was the Water Protector event. It was over at NEA recently.
Yeah.
And I was blessed and fortunate to have Tony Garcia come out and play the hand drum with me, right? And I said, hey, I need a drummer, you know, would you be willing to come up? And so we're playing, you know, we just harmonized perfectly together. You know, that was our first time playing together. And
on
so
stage.
I told, anywhere on stage.
Well.
Hey, may as well
Why
try it
not?
out there, right?
Sure.
Got a full audience.
Might as well.
And so, but he just harmonized with the drum so perfectly. And then as I heard him shifting that tone, then I would shift a little bit on the flute, and then we'd harmonize our tones together. But the drum makes such a beautiful enhancement of how the flute sounds. It actually increases the beauty of the sound, you know, and just the vibration and the energy that you get off of it. And it was funny, at the end, people were asking, they said, oh, how long have you guys played together? That was so beautiful. And I was like, oh, that was our first time. We just tried.
Minutes.
It was a lot of fun, though. We really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping to see him. He'll be playing at the Jim Pepper Festival that we'll all be at playing in September, and so I'm hoping to have him play again with me there. And but he had his grandson up, you know, and he was just the cutest little thing. He was just, you know, asking me if he could play the flutes, and I was like, well, right now we're in the middle of a concert. And he comes up on the stage right there. He was such a cute little thing. And I was like, okay, you get your rattles and have your grandpa get your rattles, and you could play
There
those.
you go.
You know,
Percussion.
so I really think that engaging our Native kids in music is so important.
Oh, yes.
You know, because they need this.
Absolutely.
They need this outlet, and they need this way
Yes,
of
they do.
learning, you know, other things, you know. And as I was at the last event with the Speak Sing Native, you know, with the Jim Pepper Fest event, it was interesting how I was looking around the room and saw like 3 or 4 kids that were just sitting there. You know, they didn't want to participate. They weren't up on stage singing with all the other kids. And so I went around to them and I was like, hey, who wants to play the flute and learn how to do something different? You know, and they're like, oh, we don't play anything. Okay, do you sing? No, we don't sing. So I was like, well, come on, we're going to go learn, right? So it's really about engaging those kids into something that maybe they really don't feel comfortable with, but I think that as you engage them, you know, what they kind of attuned to, there was quite a few kids that I was teaching how to play the flute, and some of them just picked it up like that. Nice. You know, and other ones you could see, yeah, they may had a little struggle, but they could do it. You know, I think if you just teach them how to play by their heart and by what they're feeling, then they engage in it a lot deeper and much better. They really connect to the flute then.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good outreach.
It
do
is.
that, to draw the ones in who are kind of on the fence and not sure if they want to participate. But
right.
when they get the experience, they find out that, hey, this isn't that bad.
Yeah,
it
it's
can
a
be
lot
fun.
of fun.
Playing the flute is fun.
Yeah.
Now, we should mention that
Exactly.
you have one other CD.
Yes.
Tell us about this one.
So that one, The Journey Home, is an album that I actually dedicated to our mutual friend Mitch. So when he crossed over and passed on a couple years ago, he again came to my dreams and had, you know, woke me up and said, hey, you know, I went to the other side, you know, and told me how beautiful it was, and that his mom and brother and all the others were there, you know, with him waiting. And you know, and he spoke to me through that dream, and then told me to wake up and call his dad right at 9 o'clock so that I could be prepared to come home for his ceremony. And so I called his dad, and he answers right at 9 o'clock, right? He come running in the door, and he's all out of breath. And he's like, well, who told you about Minnow? And I was like, oh, well, Minnow did. He came to my dream and told me that I needed to come home for a ceremony. So as his dad was talking to me on the phone, I heard this song coming through the phone line. So I was thinking, thought you just got in the door. Are you playing music? And then I told his dad, I said, listen on the phone for a minute. Let's be a little quiet and just listen. And then I hear the elders singing and drumming, and then I hear this beautiful song coming through on the flutes. And I was thinking, well, I don't remember your tribe being flute players, but hey, it must be my ancestors tell me it's time to make this song, you know, for Mitch. And so I hear this song, and then after we got done on the phone, I went and recorded it, and I played it for a little while. Then I ended up playing it on the last day of his ceremony. And so The Journey Home this album is actually dedicated to him and his mom and dad. And because they've just been such a big, beautiful part of my life, you know, and really embracing not only me as being multicultural, and from a different tribe, but just embracing me as part of their family, and the same for me as well. And so some of the songs on there are dedicated to his family, like Wisdom of the Wisdom of the Ancestors, you know, The Journey Home. There was another one, Mother Earth, I think is the other one too. There's quite a few songs on there that I did that came through, and in this album on the cover is actually real doves flying over me. I'm actually holding one of the doves. And my friend in Vancouver has a dove release company, so I asked her, would you do my photography, and can I use these doves, you know?
Great.
And it's like the coolest thing. And so I had all these doves flying behind me, and you could just see them, and it was like they left this little smoke trail with their wings. It was so cool.
Oh, great.
And it was just a beautiful piece, and so the energy of the doves really tied it right in, and it just made it a beautiful piece. So
here's the doves. I don't know if we can give a close-up on that, but there's doves flying around her head, I swear, people.
There is. I'm holding one. Yeah. And so, but it was a lot of fun creating the album, and it has 11 songs on there, where the other one has 6. And I'm working on a third album, and so on that album I'm going to incorporate a couple other musicians into that album as well, you know, that we can incorporate our songs and other, you know, they all come from different nationalities of Native culture, you know, like James Greeley, you know, he wants me to come down and do a few songs with them in Warm Springs.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do that. And I was like, okay, let's do it, because I'm getting ready to write another album and I need some new stuff. So let's play this.
Get some inspiration from him.
That's right. Yeah. And he's a great player too.
Yeah,
so.
he is. We've had him on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
We should get him back on the show too.
I know,
He's
yeah.
just a great guy too.
Right, yeah. And he too, you know, really is involved with the children and getting them involved in, you know, the arts and just new things. And out of, you know, some of the kids that I saw at the Speak Sing Native show, you know, there's like 3 or 4 that looked a little depressed. You know, there was one there, and I asked him, well, why aren't you participating in singing? He's like, oh, I just came just to get away. It was kind of sad, you know. It was like, really, not to do this? So I kind of engaged him, and I said, you know, well, next time you come, I want you to come over here with me, and I'm going to teach you a few things, you know, and let's have fun, you know. Good. So, because it really is about, you know, if you look at our children today, you know, music and cultural, you know, societies really engage them, you know, and help them grow and become who they are, you know, in adulthood, you know, to be better people.
Yeah.
And music, when you're playing music, any type of music, people don't realize that you're actually using both the left and right side of your brain. And most children that are engaged in music are better at learning.
Oh, yeah. Clearly, that studies have shown kids who know a musical instrument do better in school.
Right. I see that a lot in my therapy, because I also counsel children as well. And a lot of the times I will engage them in trying to get involved with, you know, the arts or music or something creative.
Well, and we want to talk about that end of your life, the therapy and the hypnosis, and we will talk about the healing arts here in a minute. But first, I have a book review that I want to share with our viewers. The one of the best authors, Native American authors, is a guy named Vine Deloria, Dr. Vine Deloria. He's no longer with us, but he was a prolific writer, and I reviewed his last book that he ever wrote, which came out posthumously, and you folks might remember The Way We Used to Be was his book. He collected stories from tribes all around the country, their miracle stories, the people that did miracles and magic, and, you know, they were amazing people. And he collected those stories over the years, all his research, and put them together in his final book. But this book, God is Red, is his preeminent publication. This talks about how Native people see the world in a general sense, because each tribe has their own practices and beliefs, but there's a lot of similarities between a lot of the tribes, and mainly the way they respect Mother Earth. That's something that we all share. And Vine Deloria explores different tribes and their religious philosophies and beliefs, and he really does a great job of teaching us about Native religion, Native spirituality, and wants us to see God in the image that we see God in is as a red man, as a Native person. And it's really an important book that he wrote, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to know more about Native spirituality and how we can see that God, for us, God is red. So this is something I want you to consider and read and learn from. The other book that I brought is Inchiwana. Now, this doesn't show up on the camera that well, but this is done by a non-Indian professor named Eugene Hun, and I know him personally. I've met the guy. He interviewed the Salam family as part of his PhD dissertation and recorded oral history and native languages and information about plants and animals, mainly in the Columbia River Gorge. This is where the Salam family grew up. They're now on the Yakima Reservation, but all the tribes got moved off the river when the treaties were made because that's where everybody else wanted to live. So the Salams were moved off of the gorge, but they had all this knowledge from living in the gorge for thousands of years about the medicines that grew, the foods that grew in the gorge, and the seasons, and they used the native language in here to talk about the plants and foods, so they all have their Indian names associated with it. So it's really a very educational text for those who want to know about the river people, but in general, just to know about the medicines that grow in this region and the foods that grow and the old Indian names of those. It's very important to keep that history alive. So even though he's a non-Indian, this guy did a great job of collecting information from the Salam family and putting it into a book. And it's got photos and figures and texts, and this is more for like a college student because it's pretty deep and it takes some serious reading to get through it. But if you're not educated, you could certainly read this book and learn a lot. So it was sort of designed for college text, I think, but it's good in general for everybody to learn about the Columbia Gorge. So another book that I highly recommend, and I'm not getting paid any money to promote either of these books, so they're very good books. Please, if you get a chance, read those two. So thank you, Sherrie, for letting me take a little time out here, because these books are very important, and I would like to see them read by more people in the community. But we want to talk about your business now, the Northwest Hypnosis and Integrated Medicine, Total Mind, Body Wellness. And this, you've been doing this for longer than you've been playing the flute, I'll bet.
Yes, yeah. I started this company back in 2009, and prior to that I was working for Quest Communications, and then when we were all getting laid off and our jobs were going away 3 years prior, you know, I kept getting visions and things about, hey, you're going to lose your job, you know, you got to do something else. So I went back to school, and I thought, okay, this is a time to work for myself and to really be in control of my destiny, you know, and to be in control of that part of my life.
Great,
And so, yeah, when I started that, you know, I really incorporated a lot from what I learned in college way back when I was younger. Hate to say my age, but, you know.
We won't ask.
Hey, we won't ask, yeah.
I already confessed.
Yeah, there you
don't
go.
have to.
All right, I will later. But when I was in college, I actually was going to school for naturopathic medicine, and when I was 36 years old, I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And it was right after I had moved back to Eastern Oregon, out to Hermiston and Pendleton area. And so, and I only stayed out there for 2 years until I finally, you know, went through treatment, did the surgery and all that kind of thing. But luckily for me, I already had the knowledge of the natural medicines and the way to heal myself with natural herbs and natural ways. And so I was going out to a naturopath that did a lot of IVs and stuff out in Cornelius, Washington at that time when I was living in that region. And so, and he did a lot of naturopathic medicine techniques, and he was also a medical doctor. And so, and he had his own story, you know, things that he'd went through and healed himself from. And so then I ended up having surgery, completely did a bunch of chelation and vitamin C drips and immune IVs, and then naturopathic, you know, herbs and medicines, and ended up healing from it.
Great.
I was able to put the cancer in remission just by doing that. I didn't do chemo, I didn't do any radiation. And at that very time, my grandmother was actually passing away from the same cancer when I was diagnosed with it.
Ooh.
And she did. She had passed, right about the time that I was getting ready to have surgery. And so I thought, I'm not going to go down that Western medicine road, because I seen how she suffered and how it didn't help her. It just made her worse, even though she was 83. But I wasn't seeing a lot of people that I knew that had these type of cancers get better when they did the chemo and radiation. And so that's why I stuck with natural medicine. And then later, and my grandmother was a herbalist and a naturopath herself. So I kind of wanted to follow her traditions and her ways. And I was a lot more like her too. And so, it's just like, hey, I need to follow this way and listen to what she used to try to tell me as a kid. As kids, we laugh it off and think, oh,
I know.
Our grandparents
I missed out a lot.
I did
not
too.
paying attention to my grandma.
Yeah, me too. But she'd always give us tinctures and herbs and different things to heal us when we were sick, and we'd take them and we'd feel better, right? So. But then later, into adulthood, when my life was changing and going through that transition, I decided it was time. It was time to do something that I knew that helped me and saw so many others get better, and to be able to offer that to others as well.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went into the integrated psychology through hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and then taking NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming therapy as well. So it helps you more in the conscious level of healing your body.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, NLP is the short version. And then doing emotional code release therapy as well. So sometimes what happens with that is we will have emotional blockages that happen, and all of a sudden we'll have these weird phantom pains, right? The doctor can't figure out what it is. Well, a lot of times it could be an emotional trapped blockage that we are holding in our body, whether it's in the heart or the kidneys or some other organ, system. Like the spleen will have a lot of fear and a lot of stress that will cause it to inflame or have emotional issues. And when they have those problems in the physical organs, like the liver holds anger. And so when they're holding the anger, it correlates to many layers of things in their life.
Yeah.
Or things that have happened to them, and even the fear and so on. And so there's so many different layers of emotions that our body can hold, whether it's physical or just the emotional. But our organs and our cells are all affected by those emotions.
Oh, you bet.
And so that's why I decided, hey, it's time for me to go into something that's really cool, that can help people in a much deeper level than just regular psychology. And so that's why I went into integrated psychology through taking the hypnotherapy. And a lot of people get kind of misguided by what they think hypnotherapy is. And I will see this a lot, I think, oh, you're going to make me do something, right? And that's just, just as a myth buster there, hypnotherapy doesn't make you do anything that you're not willing to do, right?
Run around like a dog and bark.
That's right, exactly. That doesn't exist, yeah. And a lot of those shows that people see, those people are wanting and willing to do that. They're
paid actors,
as we know. Basically.
Yeah.
And so, but clinical hypnotherapy is used more for healing your body medically. And so I treat, in the first 3 years of my practice, I specialized in nothing but cancer therapy. And so I saw nothing but cancer patients. And at that time, I did the Reiki therapy, the hypnosis, still do, and the integrated medicine piece of it, where I use kinesiology, muscle testing, to figure out what the deficiencies are in the body, what those blockages are, and identify what the actual problem is that is physically happening in their body at that time, or even emotionally. And so a lot of it really correlates together. If you see illness at a really high rate, like say cancer, for instance, you'll find that a lot of those people are under a great deal of stress. But they'll also have a lot of emotional fears or other childhood things that they haven't overcome. And you'll find that that energy and that emotion, it blocks up in certain organs or wherever they're holding that cancer. And I know that happened with me. I grew up with, a father that was an alcoholic and, not a very good person, and so of course we hold that energy in our body, and where are we going to hold it? Sometimes for women it's in the uterus, and that's your confidence center there in the chakra center with the Reiki therapy. So sacral is the confidence, your drive, your self-worth, things like that. And I know when I was younger, I probably didn't have much self-worth at all, and then later on learned kind of through school hard knocks, that, hey, there's a lot better things out there. And that's why I mentor a lot of kids, because I can relate to what they are going through, because I've been there, and I can help them heal from those things and identify it a lot quicker. And I think as a therapist too, not just a behavioral health therapist, but in the naturopathic field, when you're able to identify those things and relate to, whether it's a child or adult, either whatever it is, you're a better therapist because you can identify with it and you can help them overcome those challenges. And but I'm also what they would call a medical medium. So when I'm working on people and I'm doing Reiki therapy, I can physically feel what they're having, what is wrong with them. And so when I'm touching someone or I'm doing the energy, and so because I'm using the sensory, so people kind of get a little misguided too about what intuition is, And so like everybody, we all have gut instinct, right? We all have animal instincts, sensories, right? So the 5 senses. And, and that comes into really listening to what you're feeling and sensing and knowing. And same thing with the music, I sense it, I feel it. It comes to me through that emotion. But when I'm working on patients and I'm seeing things that are going on with them, even when I'm touching something that they're holding, I can feel whether or not that is good, bad, or if the percentage dosage is too high or too low. Just by sensing it through my sensory.
Great.
And so when I'm working on them, especially for cancer or pain people, so as I'm working on doing the Reiki therapy and I have my hands over them, I'm touching them, I can feel what level of pain they're in, and I can tell where the pain is located and where it's coming from, just by either muscle testing them and finding it out that way, or I'm doing the Reiki therapy and the hypnosis and connecting to that energetic body, so our energy of our body is just as important as our physical. And so when you work through the natural fields, you'll find that, through Chinese medicine, they talk about the qi energy, they talk about the energy of the body and how important the energy is to the organ systems as well, because every part of our body has energy, and if we have a blockage somewhere, I've seen several patients that they have back issues, right? A lot of those back issues also have an emotional connection or a cord connected there. Some people are more empathic, so they pick up energies from other people and then they absorb it. And then they come in and I have to clear it, move it out, as I call it, and help them emotionally deal with it better. And so there's there's a lot of layers to, hypnotherapy, integrated medicine, doing Reiki therapy. There's a lot more to it than what people just have heard or read about,
Well, if, let's say somebody is looking for treatment or therapy, how could they get a hold of you? Sherrie, what is your good way to contact you?
I have a website as well. So my website is Northwest, which is abbreviated NW, hypnosis.net, and or they can reach me at 360-991-2619. And they can text me there too. So I'm pretty mobile because sometimes I go to my cancer patients' homes, so I pretty much just use the cell.
In-home visits, that's great. Well, we are actually running out of time for our program already.
Oh, an hour goes by quick.
Yes, so I would really love to hear a song to
so
take us out
one.
with the big
big,
The big bass
flute.
flute. Now, what key is this one again?
So this is a D. So this is a bass D is what it is. And so it's a lot more softer, deeper tone. I actually play the song that I wrote for our friend Mitch, The Journey Home.
Well, thank you for taking us out on that, Sherrie. And I want to thank Jim and Karma behind the window for their help on the show. And we're taking a hiatus for the summer, so we hope to be back in September. So take us out, Sherrie. Thank you very much.